Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's Writers Chat. This is where we like to get together as writers, talk about writing, all things writers, for writers, and by writers. So we're really, really glad to see you guys here. We've got a lot of our regular crew in the chat. And if you're taking the time to watch the replay, thank you. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing that for yourself as a writer. So we are at the first of 2023, aren't we? And a lot of times we've talked about goals and we've talked about goal set. We decided to try to change it up a little bit. And we're going to look at writers' wishes, things that we wish that we're wishing for each of us in 2023. And then we got even more creative as writers, and we made 5. You can see there's 5 of us here, each of us to talk a little bit about what assigned a certain word, what that made us think about. So our words are caring, challenge, community, creating, and curiosity. So then what we'll invite you guys, we'll invite those of you that are in the chat to come on in at the end. You might have some reflections, and maybe we'll reflect a little bit after each one, just a little bit too. We'll see how we're doing time-wise and stuff. So thank you for being with us, and I hope you kind of like this discussion we'll have today. I hope it inspires you to think of some wishes and some goals and some intentions for the coming new year that we have right in front of us. So since we chose alphabetical order, Brandy wasn't on when we decided to go this way, and she gets the first word. So she has to lead. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Brandy, why don't you talk to us what the word caring inspired in you?
Well, when I thought about caring and writers, I kind of thought about 4 different elements of caring. And that is caring. Well, I'll do the first one. Caring for my craft. It is important to care about our craft, what we're doing. We want our writing to be really good. So my wish list for that part of caring is that I and others would seek to study writing to better your skills, to better my skills, to figure out, how to improve, figure out our weaknesses, figure out maybe what we do well and enhance what we do well. But then the second part of that is practice the craft. So practice what I learn, practice what I already know. I know in the past I would fall into lots of study in writing the craft, and I wouldn't necessarily practice everything that I was learning. So I was really more a student of writing rather than a practicing writer. So my wish for everybody and for myself is that not only would we study the craft to better our craft, but that we would practice what we learn so that we actually put it into action, words get onto the page. And that leads me to the next point of caring for our readers. Why do we write? Some of us write for ourselves, but if we write only for ourselves, well, really, we could just journal, right? So when we write and we publish, we're really writing for our readers. And so my wish list for that part is that we will write to connect with our readers, that we will write to move them to feel, which I think is really the heart of why we write. We want people to feel what we write, because when they feel what we write, it moves them into action, or it moves them into a different train of thought. I think that's really, really important. And the other thing is to write for them and not just for me. I know a lot of times I'll write stories and I write them because I like them. And that's good, and that's important to like what we write. I think that if we don't care about what we're writing, then we won't be able to go the distance with our writing, especially if it's a long piece of work. So my wish for all of us is that we would write for our readers, but that also we write for ourselves as well. It's kind of a marriage, I think, when we write. My third of 4 in the caring department is that we care for fellow writers. I wish that all writers in the world were not self-absorbed and would look outside themselves. A lot of writers in the general market will sometimes see their writing as a competition with others. And yes, we are in a competition of sorts when we write, because it's a competition, so to speak, when we submit our work and it goes into a pool with other people's writers, and one person's writing is put against another person's writing to figure out which is going to best fit the publishing house and which is going to best fit their readers and the market. So it is a competition in that respect, but it's not a competition with actual writers. Actual writers, and if you really think about it, each of us has something unique to offer in our writing. I can't write what Jeannie writes. Jeannie can't write what Melissa writes. Melissa can't write what Norma writes, and Norma can't write what Johnny writes. We all have something unique to offer. And if we remember that component, then it becomes easier for us to care for our fellow writers. And so my wish is that we would care for fellow writers in encouraging them, in praying for them, in listening to them, and then in giving and receiving feedback. Not just giving feedback, but receiving too, because it's important for it to go both ways. And then the last component of caring that I wish for everybody is that we would care for ourselves as writers. I think that's really, really important. Sometimes we can get really hyper-focused on the market or what we need to put out, or I need to make an income. And if we emotionally are not fed and taken care of, then we can over time burn out, we can implode, and we can just fall away. So in that aspect, I would say in caring for ourselves, I think it's important to journal. If you can journal, some people don't like to journal. And I'm thinking of one writer in particular who really doesn't like to journal, but she takes those things in her lives and she puts them into her novels. And so her noveling is kind of cathartic for her. And that's one way to do it. So I would say journal is a good idea, but do what works for you. But the most important, I think, is to spend regular time with God. And that would be in his word, at his feet, and lifting praise to him. It's really important to get that regular connection with God, because he is life. And apart from the vine, we fall away and wither up. We can't do anything really without him. And so those are my wish lists for 2023 for us, and all that: caring for my craft, caring for fellow writers, caring for our readers, and then caring for ourselves.
Very good. Comments? Melissa, Johnny, Norma, response?
I took notes. Those were great, great suggestions for not only caring for ourselves as writer, caring for our craft, and caring for others.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we feel alone, but in reality, we're not an island to ourselves, and we need to take care of ourselves and others. That was great, Brandy. I loved it.
It was.
Yeah.
I always call it self-care and soul care, and that brings like kind of what you were saying exactly, then I don't want to have them two separate things or together. And if I tell you, if I have my time with God in the morning, the day goes better. That's just duh.
I want to put in there, I have never been able to do the time with God in the morning. I'm
Really?
terrible at it.
My body just have to find their own rhythm.
But you know what? I end up with, I spend a good hour to two, more like hour and a half to 2 hours with God in the evening before I go to bed. That is my best time to spend with God. And for years, I thought there was something wrong with me because I couldn't spend time with God in the morning. And that's what you're supposed to do, start your day with God, right? Well, I end my day with God. And then when I wake up in the morning, he's fresh in my mind. And, that's just what works for me. So I just want to throw that in there in case there's anybody else out there that's kind of like me. Don't get that down on yourself. If mornings don't go well for you and spending time with God, that's okay.
Yeah. Anytime with God is great.
That's important, because I'm sure you've got a morning routine that you have to do in the mornings with your family, and and so that's I think God understands that.
It takes me about 2 hours to plug in my brain, so
that's
not my best time to give to God. So.
And Catherine says journaling can be a form of prayer, and Norma also said that, and it's so true. Absolutely, it's true.
Absolutely. Well, shall we progress on? Thank you, Brandy. Thank you. Gives
you.
us food for thought. And those of you that are listening in the chat, think about care, how care could help motivate you or form your wishes in 2023. So on the next one, I was took the word challenge, and it's my wish for 2023 that we don't, sometimes challenge can be negative, you know what I mean? It can feel heavy or discouraging, on that. And it's my wish for 2023 that challenge be a motivator or an inspiration. And I'm going to tell you kind of why that word sort of appealed to me on that, because it I think sometimes challenges in small chunks, not the big challenge, will I ever lose the last 20 pounds, or will I ever, I'm talking about little mini challenges that help us as writers on that way. Now, so what I mean by mini challenges is I mean small ideas or small chunks of time. I like to put them in that way. For example, last week I shared with you the thing I'm trying this year to write 17, it's actually, they've been closer to 2025 syllable poems each day. I only missed one day so far. And I shared that, and I put that article on our Facebook page. If you want to read that article that inspired it, you might have to scroll down a little bit, but I put it there if you want to see that. That's sort of a small chunk challenge, even though it's going to go all year, as kind of a challenge to my creativity to get that going. So that it's kind of fun that way. The other idea is I read the book end of last year called Idea Flow, where you talked about capturing your ideas. Now, a lot of us writers carry an idea booklet around. Okay. So I've done this off and on, but I haven't done it. But his idea in the Idea Flow book was to write an idea down a day. But what surprised me more than anything was I used to hear on the idea of brainstorming that the challenge with brainstorming is that you don't take the first or second or third day idea, you take the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th idea, that usually that was a little better, so keep brainstorming. But in Idea Flow, he found out the research showed him that you need as many as 2,000 ideas for that one treasure to bubble up. Now, there's no way I'm going to write 2,000 ideas this year, but I've started my goal. My challenge to myself is going to be to write 31 new ideas down in each month, 30 or 28 in February, 30, whatever it matches. So like in January, I'm writing 31. My little idea is to write ideas. And what's neat about this is it doesn't all have to come at once. It is, I listened to 2 different podcasts this morning that probably gave me 4 ideas. So I'm way ahead right now. I'm to the 12th. I read 2 days ahead, but I skipped a bunch of days earlier. So anyway, I'm not going to be so crazy that if I miss a day, then I'm upset. But I like the idea of challenge myself to do that throughout the year. And I bet at the year end, and you guys can hold me to it. You could ask me at the year end if I wrote my poems each day and if I wrote my ideas down each day. I bet something's going to come up, some idea, some way. I'm hoping I will hear maybe what God wants me to do. That'll bubble up within it. It's very similar to journaling in that way. For those of us that do old journals, often the thing, you get clarity in writing things down. So those are 2 challenges I am doing. The other way I like challenges is in with the time, like a 5-day challenge or a 30-day challenge. I'm going to write a chapter. I'm going to work on my chapters and my manuscript for the next 15 days or whatever on that. Now, you guys know I had quite an adventure last year with one of my manuscripts being accepted and then being rejected. And so I've come up with an idea how to revise it. And I sat down yesterday with the calendar and looked at the quarter. I looked at the first quarter of the year and blocked off, and I don't know how many days it is, half days and full days on my calendar just for working on that, to revise that and get that into the shape I want to. That's sort of my quarterly challenge, to have the revision done before the end of March. So we'll see. We'll see. Actually, we'll see. We'll see if it's done. But I've blocked off time on my calendar. So I'm hoping that'll work. But you got to be a little bit flexible too. You know, like I said, you got to be, I call it hold things lightly, hold that schedule lightly, but I'm not going to use that as an excuse either. That's why I like the word challenge on that. Gretchen Rubin, who, if you've ever read her happiness project ideas, she's interesting one to follow. She started this last year and she repeats it this year. Last year she had 22. This year she has 23 goals in 23. I think that's neat. And they're fun to see what other writers are doing. And she is a writer. She goes on an artist date every day. You know, you talked about the artist date for creativity. She goes every day, for example. So she's got that down as one of her goals on that. But what I learned about her blog post on her 23 goals in 23, which was a neat challenge in itself, was she wrote down on the 23rd of every month, she's going to check her goals. So I have an Apple computer. So I went into my Apple calendar, because you know how you could set something up one month and have it repeat as long as you wanted to. I have it set up in 2023 on the 23rd of every month to at least be intentional to check my goals. I thought that was a good challenge. Good challenge to make your wishes, maybe. So you don't forget about that. Oh, I forgot I wrote that down. Is that still a good goal? Is that still a good wish? And if it seems like it still has some life to it, okay, when am I going to start doing something about that? So I don't come up to December 31st, 2023 and not have a bunch done. So I thought that was an interesting challenge, the 23rd of every month. So I'll share that for what it's worth. And then the last thing I want to change with you, I just read this yesterday on the Book and Such blog post. If you guys get that, Wendy Lawton shared with them that she had a conversation with her physician about how she could keep her mind healthy, her mind active. And her physician told her 3 things. And she says the first 2 were not surprised. He said, exercise, stay moved, eat healthy was number 2. She said she was surprised on how he described number 3. He called it shock your brain. And he said, kind of stretch yourself each day to learn something new. His example is that he's learning Mandarin Chinese. That's not going to be my goal for 2023 at all. But he said you should study something until your brain hurts. It's just kind of like exercising that muscle. And that made me really think. I said, okay, I'm not sure what that will be for me, but that's a new challenge. I think that's kind of a cool thing to challenge yourself. And I think Brandy kind of said something similar to that. Stretch yourself a little bit in 2023 and shock your brain. That sounds, what a challenge. What a challenge that will be on that. So those are just some of the challenges that in my wish for you all to use challenges in a positive, productive way that motivates you and inspires you, is not discouraging. Not discouraged. We don't want that discouraged. That gets up. So I don't know if you guys have any comments or reflections on that before we move to the next C.
Again, I took lots of notes, and I love the on the 23rd of each month, check your goals. Mm-hmm. That was really, really cool. I think that's that and write an idea a day. Yeah. Or however many days in the month. Mm-hmm. Those 2, I'm gonna do my best to implement those. I like those. Yeah.
Well, and like I said, give yourself some grace on that. That's part of the self-care Brandy talked about. Like I wrote 4 down this morning. Then you're gonna have some days it's not gonna happen. But if you start looking for them, they're there. You'll find them, Johnny.
And it's not overwhelming.
I'm sorry, Norma. Go ahead. Go ahead.
It's not overwhelming to just one thing and write it down. Take a moment. Okay, here's my goals. Tweak them. I made it. I didn't make it. Grace, and move on. So these are things that aren't going to consume a lot of our day to do them. And therefore, I think that makes them very doable.
Very doable.
And have very good outcome from them.
Mini challenges. See, that's why I like the idea of mini. They're mini ideas. Johnny, what were you were adding something.
I had a question. Are you doing ideas like for future articles or books or
I'm doing any idea, any idea, because when you could, I listened to the man that owns the TED Talk industry this morning. I listened to his TED, and for example, and he was talking, it was a word he used several times. The word he used was reshuffle. And I thought, reshuffle. That is an interesting word. He used it multiple times. Because he said what they were asking him, what is a good idea? And one of the characteristics of a good idea, he says, is helps us understand the world in a new way, putting the pieces together, and it reshuffles the way we see the world and reshuffles how we see the future. And I thought, oh, that is a cool word. I could do a blog post on that. I think it's reshuffling could be a spiritual practice if you sat there, and I don't know if there's bees. It'd be interesting. I don't think that's what other words are for I don't know, but that's just the concept of an idea that I could write a poem about it, but you could, anytime I think the practice of trying to write them down, you got in that challenge, makes you much more sensitive to all the ideas that God gives us. So that's it. So no, it's not necessarily an idea. I love words, and it might just be that word. That's my word of the day: reshuffle.
Reshuffle.
Like that.
On that way. Okay. Anything else? We're going to go on. Our next word is community, and I'm thinking it's Norma, right?
It's me. As I was saying at the beginning, I think I was saying to Brandy that as writers, we're often alone. We can't, sometimes we get together in critique groups and things like that. But most of the time, we're at our computer alone writing, and we can feel disconnected from people. And so my wish this year is for us to expand our community. And I have a few different ways a few different categories in which we can expand our community. And of course, first is family. Now, we can't expand family, although some of our families are expanding. I found out I'm going to be grandma again, and this will be grandbaby 14. And so, yes, my family is expanding. But with that, my goal this year is for taking more time, deliberately taking time to spend with each of my children and their children. And so to keep that family unit connected, because as we know, families are under attack all the time. And it's hard sometimes to find families that still care about each other and want to be together. And so my goal is to help my family want to keep, and I'm blessed because we're all within 30 minutes of each other. So that makes that a very doable goal for me. Next is friends. We need friends. We need the person that's going to come beside us and say, okay, Norma, you keep delaying this. What's the problem? We need someone that is a true friend and will tough love us sometime, to say, okay, quit making excuses. Let's go. Get with the program. And so friends are hard to come by. I think all of us know this. I was telling a friend of mine just the other day, I wish it was like we were in kindergarten. We could go up, hi, would you be my friend? But, as a 63-year-old woman, that's kind of, a little weird. So I can't do that. But, there are things we can do to cultivate new friends in our community of friends. Like, just care about somebody else. Hey, how are you doing today? And button and listen instead of waiting for the moment to jump in to say what's going on in your life. Just listen. And the next area, and these aren't necessarily in the order of importance, this is just kind of how they popped up in my head. Church. And church is our faith. And since the COVID lockdown, it's changed so many things. And this past Sunday, I was in church for the first time in about probably 4 or 5 months. And it was wonderful. I watch online, but it's very different being there in person. And I know some people can't because of health issues, but if you can get in among a body of believers, oh, I challenge you to get into that community and let God bless you. The amount of love and, oh, I missed you. It's so good to see you. And that's not why I went, but that was just an added bonus. And I know they're there, that I can send out a text to a couple of people. Hey, pray for this, and give them permission, please share. And it spreads, like wildfire. So my challenge with that is maybe get a little more involved in your church. And my other challenge on the opposite end of the spectrum to that is pray. Maybe you're doing too much and God wants you to dial back. Just because there's a need and nobody else will do it if I don't do it, maybe God doesn't want it to be done. Or maybe he's waiting for there to be a void so that it forces somebody else to step up. So pray about that. My next is writing. We're all writers here. How can you expand community in writing? Well, we're a part of Writers Chat. Another great organization is Serious Writer. They have an academy, and it has all different levels. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Johnny, correct me if I'm wrong, they have an entry level of just $10 a month. Most people,
Well,
is that right?
Yes, right now, but they are redoing things, so there are going to be some changes. I'm not sure exactly what all those are, but they'll be sending that out. So I think there's just going to be one level going forward. But I think I'm like 90% sure that's true. So.
Okay. But they also, just like Writers Chat, they have a free version I think you can follow on Facebook. There's all kind of creative. I was part of Abundance Books this past weekend, had a creative symposium, and I made connections there with writers and speakers. I connected with a gal that was an artist. And so it's just fun. It's still in a creative community. And my goal is to, a lot of times when we're at conferences and things, it's, oh yeah, let's get in touch. Yeah, woohoo, this is great. Life gets in the way and we forget. So my goal with community is I want to make sure I connect with those people. I said, yes, let's connect. If nothing happens, nothing happens. But I want to make sure I'm the one that follows up. And lastly, find something new. Maybe it's a new group. Maybe you want to check out the Jerry Jenkins Guild or any of these other wonderful places for writers, but also check out new places for just creatives, because you can learn from artists, even if I'm not an artist, y'all. I promise. My daughter-in-law, who is very artistic, tried to hide her laugh at my stick person. That's how bad I draw. Like, no joke. So, but I can still learn things from her. You can take things from other creatives and put them into what you do. And one last thing I want to do is I want to do a little pitch. I meant to do this when I was back talking about church and spiritual things. I'm putting it in the chat. I think I'm putting it in the chat. Let's try it again. All right. I'm going to try it one more time, you guys. I'm sorry. Technical issues here. There is a book that is a wonderful, wonderful book. And there it is. And it was by our very own Jean Wise. And it's a great book. And it's not a big book. You can read it real quick, but there's things in there to practice that will take you some time. So I challenge you to do that. And that's my wish for you, is that in the different areas of your life, your community will expand.
That was wonderful. You know, I was in a mastermind last year with Emily Freeman, which a lot of you may know as a writer. And her comment towards the end of the year when they were getting ready to graduate us was, you think about writing communities in 3 different ways. The ones that you're like your colleagues, you know, like I'm thinking of, but your fiction writer group that we have, they have the fiction writer group here and within Writers Chat. And then think of ones that stretch you a little bit, that, you know, that are a kind of ahead of you so you can grow and learn from, but then always remember the people that are just now learning and entering to help another writer. So that's a different kind of, I don't want to do it a hierarchy, but that's a different way to think about community. That was lovely, Norma. Johnny, Brandy, Melissa, comments on community?
Well, it's important. I totally agree with Norma about that. One thing I found kind of interesting is that, you know, developing friendships, and this has kind of been on my mind recently because I've made a new friend who's going to pick me up, and we're going to the Fellowship of Christian Writers event this evening. And but you guys know I've moved around quite a bit and gone to different churches, and excuse me. I think the older I get, the less I feel the need to meet new friends. Does that make sense? Because I've already got.
It's harder too. It's harder.
It is
When
harder.
you don't have kids at home to connect you and stuff. It's harder.
They're already connected to each other, is like what I found even in the church. There are a bunch of older single women, but they've been living life together for 5, 6, 10, 20 years, you know, so it's not easy. They're very kind and very friendly. I don't want to give that impression at all. Very welcoming. And yet, you know, coming in from the outside, you're not part of the history of that. And the people I have that history with are in Florida and, you know, other places in my kindred hearts, Jeannie, of course, you know, so but it doesn't bother me that much, but it bothers my kids, and they think I should have more friends. But it's like, but I do have friends. They're just not here, you know, and that's okay, really. So, except anyway, now I do have a new friend, so I am excited about that.
I think there's been some books written lately. I'm thinking Jenny Allen just wrote a book, but I haven't read it. Something about find your people, find your tribe, or something like that. Purposely talking about how it's harder as you get older sometimes to connect. Now, writing would be a bridge for all of us to find a fellow writer. Church can be a bridge, you know.
Absolutely.
Empty nester might be a bridge, you know.
I mean, it is interesting, and I think we should do it. But I also think, you know, if somebody, you know, I think it's okay not to necessarily pursue that either. I mean, because again, like, you know, I live with Bill and my granddaughters, and we interact a lot throughout the day. So it's like I've got this family here, and Nate and Bree are here. So, you know, Joe says, I love making new friends. Well, I do too, but I guess I'm talking about that whole other level of, you know, there's no one, I don't think, that I would become close friends with at this point in my life that I would share like the history of my marriage. There are people that already know that. And if I want to talk about it, I would go back to those people who were there living that with me, right? So, you know, I guess it's that you're not going to find, I don't think I'm ever going to find that intimacy with a new friend at this stage in my life. And I'm okay with that. But I think it's an interesting thing to think about.
It's an interesting observation.
Yes.
Could be a theme for a book or a novel. We're always looking for ideas. There you go. There's your idea to write down today.
I did for today.
Yeah.
That's on a different track. I'm kind of sorry. I didn't know that it was going to go down that bit.
That's all right. And Leslie made the comment that her word readers and other writers group disbanded, and so she wants to be. If I wanted to be a part, she would have to build it. And somehow, I am so. Leslie, I would tell you, I have started so many different groups and stuff. I don't want to be the starter anymore. Someone else, please do it. Maybe I'll join it. But she would have to do the work to get it started, and that's an element because we want to write. We don't necessarily want to do it. Brandy, were you going to add something? It looked like you were going to add something.
Yeah, for many, many years, I sought really hard for friends, and in high school I could make friends really easily and fine, but it seemed like once I got out of high school and got married, nobody wanted to be my friend, and I just commiserated for years. I remember praying and asking God over and over, God, please send me friends. I'm so lonely. I was just married. I have little people and I need adult people, and I just didn't have anybody. And I think there are some people out there that are probably like me, where you might seek community and have a hard time finding it. And I just wanted to kind of give an input on that side and say, sometimes that happens, and sometimes we don't know why. God knows our hearts. But I do know that through that time, it really forced me to draw closer to God. God wanted to be my best friend. And he has since brought other people into my life to be friends, but they've come in different ways. I don't have anybody really in my locality that is really a close friend. I have some that I have a real heart for, but I don't connect with them on a regular basis for various reasons. A lot of my close friends, hi Jaylee, just a minute, are online now, and I've met them through different ways. So I would say, if you seek a friend and have a hard time and you're trying to seek community and you feel like nobody wants to be your friend and what's wrong with you because you're a lovable person and you just want to connect with somebody, trust God, continue to seek God, and trust that he will bring about community in his way, in his time, and let it be okay with you, and just draw closer to him in that time period.
And just reading the chat too, we have really hit a pain point with writers, I think, here with all of us, no matter whether we have little kids at home or empty nesters or where we are in our writing community. I think this is a real pain point for writers. Do we feel guilty about it? Not feel guilty about it? How do we do it? How do we wait patiently? How do we pray about it? And all that. It might be a topic we want to delve into more and stuff.
I heard somebody say one time, Jean, that if you have one close friend, a true friend, you are very blessed. That most people have acquaintances, but don't have one true friend among them. And that's sad to me, but it is very true. And I think that's true the older we get. Like, just thinking about it, I'm thinking about the people that I know. And I have a friend, we've been friends for almost 30 years. She was the first friend I made when we moved to North Carolina. And back when my husband had his stroke a couple years ago, and I had to take him to the emergency room during COVID, and they kicked me out of the hospital. I couldn't stay with him. At 1 o'clock in the morning, she came and sat with me.
Wow.
Because I was so distressed over what was going on. I don't know that there's anybody outside of her that would have done that for me. Not everybody has that, and there's a long time in my life I didn't have that kind of friend. So it's hard. But also, like it's been mentioned, God brings us through these seasons for reasons. I know that's kind of corny, but it's true. Often he wants us either to learn something or to become as dependent on him as we do that friend. And anyway.
That's very good. Very good. All right. Oh, I think we hit something there. We need to figure out what we're going to do with that next, on that. We'll come up with something sometime, guys, on that way. I have creativity or something next. I don't know if it's Johnny or Melissa.
Melissa?
That'd be me.
All right. Talk to us about our next C word.
Well, I thought it was really fun to notice just how much all of these C words that we've come up with spur off of each other and connect in different ways. And I really see creativity as being one that interlaces with all of these, and just, you know, and it in and of itself inspires all of these, and can be, I don't know how I want to phrase it, like a conduit to help facilitate all of those. And so I think my wish for 2023 is just to help inspire myself and others to practice creativity more in the year, to facilitate our writing, to find ways to get that outlet going so that you can be more productive in your writing, and in all of these other great aspects like finding community and challenging yourself, that I think that creativity can be like the catalyst to facilitate all of those. So I just kind of came up with some fun ideas to throw out for people and get their creative juices going. You can even brainstorm to come up with your own ways to practice creativity in 2023. So some of them are probably ideas that aren't new to anybody, but maybe there are some that are. So one of the first ideas I thought would be the most obvious is to read for pleasure. One of the things that we are often encouraged to do as writers is to read, and to read in our genres. But, you know, I say even branch out beyond your genres, challenge yourself and try a new one. Just find time to read for the pleasure of it, and be inspired by what you read, what you enjoy. Another thing that I think is kind of fun, and all the wordsmiths out there will agree with me, is to learn new words and expressions that to facilitate your vocabulary, to challenge yourself to improve as a writer and as a speaker. And one of the fun things that my husband and I really like, he has got, I think it's the Webster's Online Dictionary app, will actually send him a word of the day in email. So that's one way you can do it. I actually created my own dictionary and thesaurus that's period appropriate for my writing. So I have collected different words and phrases that would either be common to the day or might sound like they're common, even if they aren't completely historically accurate. They just kind of give that flavor, that essence of the period. And so that's always kind of a fun thing for me to get lost in words and phrases, and picture that, and it helps inspire my writing and my stories. Another thing that I definitely would encourage others to do is to take up a craft or spend time doing crafts that you enjoy. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to your writing, but if it is, hey, bonus, you know, maybe you write about cooking and you love to cook, you know, try a new recipe. But you know, I like to do things. My research and my writing for historical fiction has spurred off learning new crafts. And last year I started practicing some new crafts, like using the Lucid, which is a cord making tool. And I actually made my first cord at my first book signing. It was a fun way to pass the time during the downtimes. And then, of course, that drew people in because they want to know, what in the world are you doing? What is that weird looking fork tool you have? And so then that would spur off conversation, and people would get engaged just watching me do a medieval craft at my table. So I plan on doing more of that, and learning a few more other fun crafts, like spinning and null binding, fun things like that. I also like to sketch. If those who know me know that I like to draw. And so I use that practically for literal character sketching as well as character sketching for my fiction. And I'll use the sketches to inspire my writing character sketches. Let's see. Oh, another thing that I thought would be good, which kind of spurs off the taking care of yourself that you guys mentioned earlier, is go for nature walks. Those are so inspiring. And I think you should like bring, you know, your cell phone or a journal or a sketch pad and take pictures of or write about some of the things you see on your nature walks. You know, take time to pause and just enjoy it. And that really, really gets the creative juices flowing. I miss my nature walks in wintertime. I don't like to get out as much because it's so cold, but on the nicer days, definitely want to get out and enjoy all the creation around us. And And then one other little practical tip, which some might think sounds more like work than it is creativity, but I think it is to take time to sit down and make something beautiful. Like even if it's just taking a small space in your home and just cleaning it up or redecorating it or rearranging things so that it's appealing to you. It has a dual purpose in that it gives you the sense of accomplishment that you've done something, even if it's just as small as reorganizing your writing desk. And you've done something, you've kind of loosened your brain, you're not so cluttered. If some people, they can't work in clutter, and so that helps them to kind of think more freely. Just to take the time to make something in your personal space beautiful and to exercise creativity that way. There was something else I was going to say, and my brain just kind of. But I hope that helps kind of inspire everybody creativity wise. And if you have other ideas, please throw them out there in the chat.
We had a ton of ideas go in the chat. That's probably a good reminder if you're watching this on replay that we always post the chat. Yes. So we encourage you to take the time and go read the chat. There's been some really great ideas, calligraphy and earlier somebody had mentioned learning a musical instrument, and see that would feed both of those. And Brandy, what did you write? You wrote something about challenge, and you wrote something down there earlier. I was looking.
Yeah, a good way to hit a challenge in creativity is to give yourself a reading challenge on Goodreads, where you set a number of books you want to read per year.
Mm-hmm. That would shock your brain, maybe, wouldn't it?
Might definitely expand your brain.
I just love that, and the creativity, just getting away from the desk, what project we're working on, and doing some right brain, left brain type thing is it's great list you've given us lots of ideas. Anybody else that comment on creativity before we head to our last C word for Johnny?
I think learning something new creative wise helps us as writers.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it expands our, the way we think. It opens up doors, for lack of a better word, a better way of saying it, to allow our brains to look beyond what's right in front of us, I guess, is maybe what I'm trying to say. I feel like I'm not making any sense. But it just, writing, whether we realize it or not, we're being creative. Even if we write nonfiction, we're still being creative.
Absolutely.
So to do other creative things just bolsters that. It's like taking your vitamins. Vitamins bolster your health. Being creative in other ways bolsters your writing. Mm-hmm. And as I said in the chat last year, I joined Katie Kaufman's Artsy Tribe. And I've learned to do some calligraphy and faux calligraphy, and actually done a few drawings that she'll show real slow how to do it, and like send us a picture ahead of time. And I've actually been able to do some of those, and I've been so proud of myself. But also, when you're stuck writing or you're in a slump writing, these other things you can do or learn to do, mm-hmm. so that when the writing comes back, it's like that, it's fortified.
Yeah.
This is the sign for foundation, but it's fortified.
It's scientifically proven that if you do some creative thing, it will bolster the other creative things.
Yeah. So cool.
See, I should have just let you say that. That was so much better than the way I tried to say it.
No. And again, the chat is just full of wisdom. Lots of ideas. We're gonna have to get our idea journals out and write these down a little bit on this. Johnny, we got 10 minutes left. You got it. I'm curious how you're going to do this.
When I started looking into this and all the things I wanted to say, I probably could have talked this whole time. So it's a good thing I'm last and I'm being limited in my time period.
Just talk.
But I also wanted to follow Melissa, because creativity and curiosity, like we've talked, like a lot of these things go together, but those two really seem to go together. They're like two sides of the same coin or something. So I wanted to follow what she said so that we could then just sort of follow up with, yes, be creative and be curious, be curious in that creativity. So curiosity has been a word that I have loved for a gazillion years. And several years ago, I was in the car, and when I'm seldom in my car, but when I am, I have the public radio station on because you never know what's going to be playing and be fun interviews or, just fun, interesting things. And Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote, what is it? Eat, Pray, Love. Did I say that right? I had it even written down so I would know that I said it right. Now I can't find that note. I think it's Eat, Pray, Love. She was being interviewed, and she said that something that she said about that just stuck with me for such a long time. She said it's one thing to follow your passion, and her passion, of course, is writing. But we can get so caught up in following our passion, which is a heavy thing and can be an overwhelming thing. It is a flame, she said, that it can just burn us out. And what she encourages, and I believe she wrote a book called Big Magic, which I've not read. I don't know anything about it really. As she was thinking about passion and curiosity, she was saying, let's not worry so much about finding our passion, following our passion. Let's follow our curiosities because they are like small taps on the shoulder. They come and they go, and we can put some emotion into them, some time into our curiosities. But with passion, we're putting our whole life into it, right? With something you're curious about, you learn about it and you move on. When you're done learning about it, when you're tired of it, you move on. And so you're not as emotionally invested. And I just think that is so important. And I like being curious about a lot of things. When I was writing my grad school application, one of the things I wrote in that is I make a great trivia pursuit partner because I don't know a lot about any one thing. I'm not really an expert on anything, but I know a lot, or I know a little. Let me say this right. I know a little about a lot of things, because I read and, I listen to crazy interviews and stuff like this. So, it's like you follow those curiosities, and if you're still even trying to find your passion, maybe your curiosity will lead to that passion. So anyway, let me make sure I'm saying everything I most want to say. Yes. Bernard Branch, quote from him, "Millions saw the apple fall, but Newton asked why." So of course, that's one thing about curiosity, is asking questions, the why, and then pursuing that and trying to figure it out. I also want to talk a little bit though about, okay, well, let me go back to this. Did you guys see the Leonardo da Vinci list that I put on Facebook? I think I can share my screen. I brought it up so I could bring it up here too, and it is not there. Where did it go? I must have closed out on accidentally, so bear with me just a moment. But anyway, this dates back to like circa 1490, and it's his to-do list. And one of the craziest things about it is his it's not letting me bring it up. It's not letting me share it. I don't think. Nope. Can you guys see that or no?
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm going to minimize us. So here's his to-do list. And this is all about his curiosity. He wants to calculate these measurements. He wants to find a book about the Milan churches. There's more measurements. He wants to get the master of arithmetic to show him how to square a triangle. He wants to talk to somebody about the ice in Flanders and how they go onto it or something like that. This one right here, talk to this guy, the Bombardier, by something about the Tower of Ferrara. And it says, no one really knows what Da Vinci even means by this. And look at this one. I want to draw Milan. That would be me like saying like, I want to draw Tulsa. But anyway, here's his to-do list. Here's the open culture. You just put in Leonardo da Vinci to-do list circa 1490, and this will be one of the choices that comes up. So your list might not be as big is his, but some things we can learn from him is that he sought out experts. He's going to read books. He's going to talk to people. He wanted people to demonstrate things to him. These are all things that we can do, like being part of the group that Norma talked about. There's often a group called Crafty, and I think it's like $4 a month. Creative Bug, again, $3 or $4 a month is hardly anything, but they do all these different classes. So you can you can pursue your curiosities in those ways. But I also want to think about serendipitous curiosity, the things that just kind of come to us. It's like, I want to know more about that, and some of the things that Melissa talked about are things that we can do to inspire our curiosity. So say you want to go out to eat. Well, why not try a cuisine that you've never tried before? This would be a real hard one for me because I don't like foods in my mouth that I don't like. But you need to try, right? At least try. Go to a museum that you think, I'm not really interested in anything that this museum has. Well, you might be surprised what you might find and what it might lead to. And maybe it'll lead to a great story idea or a great article idea. You just don't even know. Okay, really quick. As I was reading about the entomology, is that what I want to say, or is that bugs? Etymology of curiosity. We're going to wrap this right around back to Brandy, because the Latin, it's partly derived, not totally, but partly derived from a Latin word meaning care. So it's so interesting that we've just kind of made a full circle. It's just so cool. That's the way that works. And of course, it also then comes to mean desire to learn. In the 14th century, it kind of had a bad connotation. It meant kind of like being a busybody or just being idly curious and, that kind of thing. But we see it now as being inquisitive, and that's what we want to be. It also is, the word curio is kind of derived from that. So think about the little keepsakes that you have around your house and how important those are to you. But curiosity can be your mental curios. What are the things you want to know? So there's lots of ways that you can just learn. We are so blessed. We carry around a little encyclopedia right here. If you want to know something, you can look it up. There are YouTube videos on all kinds of things. I've been watching somebody called, her channel's Art Deco, and she talks about these paintings, and she'll tell what makes them special and how interesting they are and the story behind them, and even things that they might be depicting that the casual viewer would not pick up on. I don't know, just all kinds of stuff. My sister listened to a YouTube video the other day, and she was telling me about the lost colony of Roanoke and the map. So this is what she goes, did you know, this is the famous words, right? Did you know that maps at one time, they were painted, and when the map maker realized he had made a mistake, he would just paint a small scrap of material and just sew it onto the map. Well, come to find out, this map of Roanoke in that area has one of these scraps of paper or scraps of material showing something. And the people that were sort of trying to find the lost colony of Roanoke decided, wonder what's under that. And come to find out, what was under it was probably the accurate map, and he had put on an inaccurate to hide because they wanted to be hidden. So, doesn't that just give you chills? I want to know more about that. That was really piqued my curiosity. So curiosity, it kind of goes with everything we've been talking about. It goes with care, right there. It goes with creativity, hand in hand with creativity. It goes with challenges, challenge ourselves to find new things. When you're doing these lists, we've got a prayer journal we're telling you to do. We've got an idea list we're telling you to do. Make a curiosity list like Leonardo da Vinci, just keep things going. I think I'm running out here, but yes, there's just all kinds of things you can do. I actually have a whole nother page of notes, but anyway.
It sounds like to me we need to do a writer's curiosity. A topic. Write that down. Melissa's our
I already did.
There's
it's in our list of things to do.
In communities.
The final thing I'll do is and it's hard. Like right now, that I am feeling kind of overwhelmed with deadlines once again. It's this is something we have to make time for. We have to make time for letting our mind wander, for following rabbit trails, for just getting out, taking walks, going places that we haven't been before. All of these things just to build up that well within us with these ideas and thoughts and observations, and then go
Following curiosity and rabbit trails without going down the Facebook hole.
Yeah.
feeling guilty too. So there you go.
I know it's funny because we always talk about, oh, you know, I got so lost in research and Facebook, I got distracted. And that's partly because we're curious creatures.
Yes.
So if we come to curiosity with intention, then maybe we will fulfill the curiosity bit without getting sidetracked and not doing what we should be doing.
There you go. We'll work on that.
Thought. That's a good thought.
Well,
Anyway,
that was wonderful. Wonderful, you guys. That's just, we're gonna have to try this again, I think, with assign ourselves little words and have the word. And they've been talking about words in the chat. A lot of us.
yeah, now I've missed the chat because I was
But
busy.
we've loved the etiology of words, and we love the words and their meanings and their roots and how they relate to one another and all that. There's we could do a whole thing on wordsmith someday on that too. And I know we're running a little bit long, but we want to tell you what's going to happen the next couple weeks on Writers Chat, and then we'll kind of run a conclusion. How's that? Who's got that? Melissa, do you want to got next week or the week, or somebody's got it?
I guess anyone, excuse me. This Sophia Hansen is going to come and speak and share about her writing journey with us next week. So
Good.
we're looking forward to that. She's got a great story.
Sophia. And then 2 weeks from now, you want to promote that again, Johnny? You got the book handy?
Here's the book, Word Painting, and we're going to do book chat. So we haven't done a book chat in quite a while. And the author is Rebecca McClanahan. Oh, there's Melissa's looks better than mine does. So I'll let her
Okay.
show. So anyway, it's a book that a couple, 2 or 3 of us had, and we've kind of been wanting to read. It's a guide to writing more descriptively, which is important whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction. So if you can get a hold of that book, even if you don't get it and don't have a chance to read it, please, come to book chat, because we'll just be talking about it and sharing what we've learned from reading it.
Sounds good. It's good. We haven't had a book chat for
It's been a
quite a
while.
while. We'd like to do those periodically. So that is great. It's great. Well, I want to thank you guys for sharing today of caring and community and creativity and curiosity and challenges. And we hope that give everybody some wish ideas for writers' wishes. And those of you that can stay with us, we'll have our after party. Maybe people could share a few of their wishes in the after party on that. But we just thank you guys. I hope you found this inspirational today as we start the new year. It's a fresh start, new beginning. We all begin again, a new beginning, and to where God might be leading us to create in challenges with our curiosity and always in a caring and community way. So I get them all in. Get them all in that way. Well, thank you everybody for joining with us. Thank you for taking the time to watch this on the replay, and we hope to see you next Tuesday on Writers Chat. Bye now.